Amidst intergalactic conflict, I found myself in a dangerous bond with a mysterious pilot who had a shadowed past. As the war intensifies, betrayals, secrets, and the truth about his involvement with the enemy begin to surface. The last light. They called it the Dawnfall. The war that burned through galaxies like wildfire through dry grass. But for me it started with a whisper. Not in a war room. Not on a battlefield. In his arms, in the quiet. I can still hear his voice, Kale Riven, half laughing, half dreaming, promising forever like he didn't already know it was going to end. That's the thing about people like him. They look at you like they found a home even when they're planning to leave. The stars were already bleeding by then. I was a commander, a soldier, they said. But I wasn't ready. Not for what we faced out there. And definitely not for what was unraveling back home on Earth. The council was cracking. Cities were breaking. And I was standing between two wars. One in the sky, one in my soul. They gave me medals. Called me a hero. But I'm here to tell the truth. Not the one written in textbooks or whispered through propaganda. The truth of how it all really fell apart. The truth of how I lost him. And how I never forgave myself. This is the story of the galaxies we couldn't save. And the love I couldn't keep. The year was 2374, Earth orbit, Helios command station. You'd think the beginning of a war would come with sirens, screaming, explosions, heroes in flight. But it didn't. It started with silence. The kind that hums beneath your skin. Like the moment before a ship breaks atmosphere. I was 28. Worn from 12 years of service. Calculated. Always 2 steps ahead of everyone. Until Kale Riven walked into command and burned all my rules to ash with a single glance. The mission that morning was routine. Escort a diplomatic envoy from Earth to the Lyrian border. A show of strength wrapped in smiles and empty speeches. Nothing to worry about. Until the Lyrians fired first. That was the first crack. Commander Vale, PICOM buzzed. Your new pilot has arrived. I glanced up from the digital map. Outside the station's glass dome, Earth spun slowly, blue, peaceful, lying to us all. Send him in. The doors hissed open. And there he was. Kale Riven. Tall, confident. Wearing that stupid half-smile like he already knew I hated cocky pilots. Which I did. But he wasn't like the others. There was something unreadable in his eyes. Like he'd seen too much. Like he carried ghosts. Commander, he said. I hear you don't like surprises. I didn't smile. Then don't be one. He was trouble from the start. Fast hands. Faster mouth. He flew like he wanted to die, or prove he couldn't. But gods, he could fly. I didn't know then that he was running. I didn't know what he'd done. Or who he'd done it for. All I knew was this. I shouldn't have let him in. Not on my ship. Not in my heart. But that's the thing about people who've lost too much. They're drawn to the ones who've lost everything. Earth Conflict Log. Entry 004. The New Geneva Treaty collapses. Mars refuses to send aid. Riots in Johannesburg. Energy crisis in Southeast Asia. And we were still pretending everything was fine. Still pretending the real war hadn't already started. Right at home. The first Lyrian strike would come in 6 days. Kale would disappear in 14. And I would become something I swore I'd never be. Survivor. How to fly with ghosts. Year 2374, aboard the Ardent Flame. 3 days before the first strike. We used to call her a junk ship. The Ardent Flame wasn't made for elegance. She was old, loud, and angry at the sky. But she was mine. My command. My home. And I'd take her through hell and back if it meant getting my crew out alive. Kale said she had a roguish charm. I told him she had a leaky plasma core and a personality problem. He laughed. Sounds like my type. We were running drills over Titan's lower atmosphere, the rings of Saturn glowing like halos above us. I watched Cale through the bridge window as he ran pre-flight alone, helmet off, wind whipping through his hair in the open hangar like we weren't one wrong step from vacuum. Does he always do that? My second in command, Mira asked. Act like he's invincible? I said, yes. Cale flew like a phantom. No wasted movements. Just pure instinct. But it wasn't training. It wasn't discipline. It was survival. Later I'd find out why. That night, after the drills, I found him alone in the engine bay. Legs dangling off the railing, staring out into space like he was waiting for something to come back. Couldn't sleep? I asked. He shrugged. Never do. I read your file. I said, there are gaps. He didn't answer for a long time. Just stared at the stars. I lost people, he finally said. I don't talk about it. You don't ask about it. That fair? It was. And yet, it wasn't. Because that night when I walked away I felt something inside me twist. A part of me I had buried with the first war. The part that still cared. And that scared me more than any enemy ship ever could. Earth Conflict Log. Entry 007. Emergency blackout in the Americas. Civil protests in New Singapore. New Arctic coalition closes trade routes. Commander Vale advised to reroute supply missions. Deny public requests for aid. Classified. Underground resistance suspected inside UPA command. Even home was no longer home. The first briefing for Operation Light Rain, our mission to the Lyrian border, came the next morning. A simple recon and shadow escort. They lied. Cale looked at the star map, then looked at me. You know we're flying straight into a trap, right? I did. But sometimes orders weren't meant to be followed. Sometimes they were meant to be broken. The year was 2374, edge of the Lyrian zone. One day before the first strike. The Lyrian border wasn't a line. It was a wound in space. You could feel it, pressure in your lungs, the silence of something ancient watching you. No stars dared shine too bright here. Just cold satellites, dead ships, and echoes. We moved in formation. The ardent flame at center. Flanked by 2 scout units and Cale in his Valkyrie-class fighter. Shade 1. Keep tight. I ordered over comms. Minimal chatter. If they're watching. They're listening. Copy that. Cale said. Then added, but I do look good from this angle, right? Mira sighed from navigation. Why did you assign him again? Remind me to rethink my decisions if we survive. Then it happened. No warning. No ping. Just light. A pulse from the abyss tore through the left flank. Scout 2 vanished in a flash of blue. No time to scream. Just static. Incoming fire. Mira yelled. Shields up. Evasive pattern Delta. Go. Chaos erupted. Missiles. Heat trails. Static screams. I caught Cale's ship veering hard to intercept a blast headed for us. He took the hit. His ship spiraled. Shade 1 respawned. Nothing. I launched. It was against protocol. Against reason. But Cale was my pilot. My responsibility. Maybe something more than that. I found his wreck on a drifting moon fragment. Atmosphere barely holding. He was alive, bleeding, coughing, suit cracked but alive. You're insane, I said, dragging him back toward my escape unit. Did I impress you? He grinned. Blood in his teeth. I could have kissed him. Or killed him. Maybe both. Later. In the med bay I sat beside him quiet. You saved me, he said. You saved me first. A pause hung in the air. Heavy. He turned to look at me. You shouldn't care. It's easier that way. I stopped doing easy a long time ago. Earth Conflict Log. Entry 009. Classified intercept confirms external interference in UPA command votes. Refugees from Mars denied asylum. Communication lines disrupted. Suspected sabotage within High Command. Commander Vale advised to report potential insider threats. Even Earth was turning against itself. But what happened next? That broke everything. Because one of the Lyrian prisoners we captured after the ambush. He looked Kale in the eyes and said, "So, you came back after all. Deserter." The room went still. I looked at Kale. And for the first time since I met him, he looked afraid. Shadows in the light. The year was 2374. Aboard the Ardent Flame, after the ambush. The med bay smelled like antiseptic and burnt metal, Kale's blood still staining the edges of the examination table. I stared at him from across the room. He hadn't spoken since the prisoner called him a deserter. Neither had I. "Commander Vale," Mira said quietly, her eyes flicking between us. "The Lyrian prisoners are secure. What do you want me to do with them?" "Hold them," I said, not looking away from Kale. "No interrogations until I say so." Mira nodded, lingering for a moment before leaving us alone with the weight of things unsaid. The door hissed shut. Silence settled in. "You're going to ask?" Kale said eventually, his voice low. "Should I?" I asked. "Or are you going to tell me why a Lyrian soldier thinks you're one of them?" Kale leaned back against the wall, wincing slightly as his bruised ribs protested. He stared at the ceiling like it held answers he didn't want to give. "I wasn't always a pilot," he said. "You weren't always mine either." He glanced at me then, sharp, guarded, like he was bracing for an impact he knew was coming. "I fought for them, once," he said. My chest tightened. "For the Lyrians?" Kale nodded slowly. "Before Solara decided freedom was a threat." I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. "And you thought that wasn't something I needed to know?" "I thought," he hesitated, shaking his head. "I thought it didn't matter anymore." "It matters," I said quietly. "Everything matters." He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling like the truth had cost him more than he could afford. "They weren't always the enemy, Ares," he said. "We fought with them once. Until Earth decided peace wasn't profitable. Until the Council started erasing names and memories and calling it necessary progress." I stared at him, my mind spiraling through years of classified briefings, half-truths, and erased files. "How long have you known?" I asked. "Long enough to know you wouldn't believe me," he said. "Not until you saw it yourself." I took a step closer, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you really here, Kale?" His eyes met mine, haunted, tired, and full of things he hadn't said. "To end it," he said quietly. "The wars, the lies, all of it." "And what happens to me in that plan of yours?" I asked, my throat tightening. He didn't look away. "I was hoping you'd survive it." Earth Conflict Log. Entry 010. Council vote on expanding neural reconditioning passes with majority approval. Public broadcasts of recent terrorist attacks flood Solara news channels. Orders issued. Identify and detain suspected sympathizers. I should have walked away. Reported him. Stayed loyal to the war that raised me. But something in his voice, something in his eyes, told me the truth I had been trying so hard to ignore. We were fighting the wrong enemy. And I was falling for the right one far too late. The space between us. The year was 2374. Ardent Flame en route to Orbital Refugee Zone Delta 9. The stars outside the window shimmered with deceptive peace. I stood there, arms folded, watching light years slip past like they meant nothing. Kale sat behind me, cuffed to the railing in the corner of the command room. It had been hours since our last words. He hadn't asked for water, food, nothing. "Tell me everything," I said. He didn't look at me. "You already know too much," he said. "Kale." My voice dropped. "Don't make me ask again." He finally turned his head, the edges of a fading bruise painting his cheekbone. "Do you know what they're doing on Earth, Aries?" he asked. "They're protecting us from extinction," I said. He laughed. Not bitter, not mocking, just tired. "That's what they told me too." I narrowed my eyes. "So what changed?" Kale's voice dropped lower. "I was stationed on Luna 7, the research colony. We were told the Lyrians had infected it, that they were experimenting on Solaran children. So we hit them, full force. No survivors." I held my breath. But when we got there, his jaw clenched. It wasn't a lab. It was a sanctuary. Refugees. Civilians. Dozens of children. Ours. They weren't infected. They were running from us. He looked up at me. Eyes red. Broken. We weren't saving lives. We were erasing them. I swallowed hard, heat rising in my throat. "And now you want to play hero? Save what's left." "No," he said quietly. "Now I want to destroy what did this to me. To us." I stepped closer. "What's your real mission, Kale?" He hesitated for just a breath. "I'm trying to reach Delta 9, he said. "There's a girl there. About 15. She's proof. The council tried to erase her, but she's still alive. She remembers Luna 7. She saw the strike." "You think a girl is going to stop this war?" I asked. "I think the truth might," he said. "But only if someone's brave enough to believe it." I turned away before he could see my face, because part of me already did. Meanwhile, in Earth's command core, encrypted transmission log, General Nethar, ardent flame intercepted Lyrian craft. Casualties unknown. Counselor Mavon, Commander Vale was on board. General Nethar, she'll follow orders. Counselor Mavon, she'd better. If she turns, eliminate her. Later that night, I stood alone in my quarters, the lights dimmed to a pale amber. I stared at my reflection. The face of a commander, soldier, daughter of Earth. But somewhere beneath that, something else was waking up. I tapped my comm. "Mira," I said. "Set course for Delta 9. Full stealth. Don't log it with Central Command." There was a pause. Then, "Understood, Commander." And just like that, I started breaking every rule I had ever sworn to uphold. Because Kale Riven wasn't just my past. He might be the only chance we had left. The girl who remembers. Location: Orbital Refugee Zone Delta 9, Classified Sector. Date: unknown, cloak timestamp. The station was supposed to be abandoned. Delta 9 floated in the void like a carcass stripped by time. Solar panels half-lit, its surface scarred from old plasma strikes. Earth's broadcasts claimed it was dismantled 3 years ago. But the truth flickered beneath the surface. Docking complete. Myra's voice echoed over the comms. "No defense systems activated. It's too quiet." Kale stood beside me, uncuffed now, but under constant watch. "You sure she's here?" I asked. He nodded. "She doesn't have anywhere else to go." We stepped through the airlock. Inside, Delta 9 smelled of rust and damp circuitry. Most of the lights were dead. What little power remained buzzed overhead in sickly green hues. We moved in silence. Then we heard it. A voice. Think. Soft. Playing. A lullaby in Lyrian. Kale's steps quickened. He turned down a narrow corridor, past a broken medbay, until we reached a sealed chamber with a flickering biometric lock. He placed his hand on the panel. Blinked once. Thumped. The door hissed open. Inside sat a girl, barefoot. Dark hair down her back. Maybe 15. Maybe younger. She didn't flinch when she saw us. Her gaze landed on Kale. Then me. I know you, she said quietly. Her voice was soft but steady. You were there. Luna 7. You wore a red stripe. I froze. He was right. Kale looked at me sharply. You were there too? I didn't answer. Couldn't. The images came back in waves. Orders given. Targets acquired. Fire. The girl walked to me. You didn't fire. I saw you hesitate. Kale stepped between us. Tell her what you told me, Mina. Mina took a breath. They lied to everyone. Luna 7 wasn't infected. It was a safe zone. They planted false scans. Holograms. The real files are still here. My father hid them. I blinked. Your father. Dr. Alandvar. Lead geneticist. They killed him when he refused to let them test on us. I stepped back. The name was familiar. From old mission briefings. He was labeled a traitor. Kale moved to the console and powered it on. We need to get this data out. Once the world sees this. The lights went out. Myra's panicked voice cracked through our comms. Commander, Earth's fleet just decloaked outside the station. They've sent a hunter. Who? I asked. Pause. Then, Commander Kale Riven confirmed double serial 902 Zeta. I stared at Kale. He went pale. It's not me. But I already knew what this meant. The Council didn't just want Mina dead. They were rewriting the war. Erasing every witness. Every rebel. Every ghost. Even Kale himself. The mirror that bleeds. Location. Delta 9 Control Chamber. Orbital Refugee Zone. Timestamp. Critical phase. Code Black Alert. The station shook violently. Panels burst from the walls like paper. Sparks rained from overhead, igniting a red glow that filled the command room. Shields are down. Mira shouted over comms. Evac advised, immediate. No. I whispered. Not yet. Kale slammed his hand against the console. We need 5 minutes to transfer the files. Just 5. But the hunter was already here. A shadow appeared in the corridor. Steel boots. Black armor. Eyes like scorched glass. Kale froze. His voice was hollow. I know that face. I looked between them. 2 Kales, one real, one a creation of war. Same jawline. Same scar on the left brow. But this Kale, this thing didn't blink. Didn't breathe like the rest of us. He raised his weapon. Target acquired. Mira unit. Subject var. Commanders 019A and 902 Zeta. Terminate. I stepped in front of the girl. You'll have to go through me. He tilted his head slightly. Calculating. Denied. Shots rang out. Kale dove sideways, firing instinctively. I pulled Mina behind the terminal. The console flared with the impact, data stuttering mid-transfer. You don't get to rewrite us. Kale shouted. Eyes locked on his double. You don't get to erase what we did. The hunter Kale replied with no emotion. You surrendered your version. This is the purge. I crawled toward the backup drive. Hands shaking. The data. The real files on Luna 7 on the Council's bioprograms. It had to make it out. A plasma blast struck Kale in the side. He screamed. No. I shouted, dragging him behind cover. Blood poured from beneath his vest. I'm fine, he gasped. Get it out. Ares. The hunter advanced step by slow step. Mina held out something, a small, broken-looking sphere. What is that? I asked. A kill code. My father embedded it. It only works once, but it needs a DNA match. Kale nodded. Weak. Use me. You'll die. He coughed, smiling through blood. Already dead, he said. Just didn't know it yet. I hesitated. The girl looked at me. He's choosing what you wouldn't on Luna 7. My fingers closed around the sphere. I slid it into the console. It glowed. The hunter Kale paused. Emergency override detected. Then it began to burn. A light from inside. Bright. Blinding. The hunter screamed, an awful mechanical shriek, as his skin cracked and peeled like bark. Then silence. Kale slumped in my arms. He looked up at me. "Did I matter?" he whispered. "I didn't lie. You were the only reason I came this far." He smiled once more, then was still. The station began to fall apart. Myra's voice shaking. "Emergency evac pod primed. 90 seconds. I looked at Mina. "You have to go. You carry the last truth." "What about you?" "I'll hold them off." I watched her disappear into the launch chute. As I stood alone in the red-lit chamber, fire curling at my feet, I finally understood something Kale tried to teach me. Even in war, there's always one choice left. Even if it breaks you. Ashes don't lie. Location: Earth, New Europa Settlement, Reclaimed Zone 4. Timestamp: 3 weeks after the fall of Deltanon. The sky was gray. Not stormy. Not dramatic. Just a gray. Like the planet had forgotten what it meant to feel. I hadn't spoken in 2 days. Not since the drop ship touched down on Earth's crust, leaving the orbital wreck of Delta 9 burning behind me. And Kale with it. Mina had been taken in by the rebels. They called her a miracle. Proof that the council could be beaten. Proof that there was still hope. They didn't ask about Kale. Or maybe they were just kind enough not to. I walked the ruins of New Europa alone. Past buildings with walls like ribs. Past children with eyes too old. Past markets that traded more in memories than food. And every step I took, I heard his voice. "Aries, you still don't trust yourself, do you?" "No." I didn't. I found myself at the memorial wall. Thousands of names. Some burned into steel, some barely visible anymore. One was just scratched in like someone couldn't wait for permission. Kale Riven. Commander. Ghost. Traitor. Hero. I smiled bitterly. "All of them," I whispered. "Ares Vale," came a voice from behind me. I turned. A woman in a council coat, tattered, but unmistakable. Older. Sharp-eyed. The kind that didn't waste words. "I'm Commander Danya of the Earth Tribunal. We've reviewed your records. What you recovered from Delta 9. It changes everything." I didn't respond. He held out a data disk. "The files you sent triggered an uprising in Sector 7. 3 governors stepped down. The Council's biogenetic operations are suspended pending investigation." "Suspended?" I echoed, voice low. She hesitated. "You're being offered reinstatement. Full rank. Tribunal advisor. Your name could mean something again." I laughed. It was quiet. Said, "My name already means something. To me." She looked at me like I was broken. Maybe I was. But I was free. As she walked away, I turned back to the wall. I placed my hand over Kale's name. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to cry. Not the silent kind. Not the strong kind. Real tears. The kind that shake your ribs and make your knees buckle. Because war wasn't over. Earth was still in conflict. The skies still burned. Secrets still slithered beneath peace talks and media broadcasts. But I had chosen. Kale had chosen. And even if no one remembered that, the stars would. The tribunal doesn't bleed. Location: Earth, Tribunal Headquarters, Subterranean Complex, Geneva Ruins. Timestamp 4 days later. "I don't want the title," I said, staring at the mirrored wall in the debriefing chamber. "And I sure as hell don't want the uniform." Commander Danya didn't flinch. She sat across from me. Hands folded. Posture tight. There was steel in her spine and ice in her veins. "You'll take the role because it gives you access," she said. "Because if you care about finishing what you started, this is how it gets done." I leaned back, biting down a bitter laugh. "Finishing what he started? You mean?" She hesitated. Riven was a liability. Don't. My voice cut through the room like broken glass. You don't get to say his name like that. A long silence stretched between us. She broke it with a sigh. Aries. I read everything. The files. Your logs. His encrypted transmissions. Whatever you two were. I don't doubt he believed in you. But that doesn't mean he wasn't dangerous. I looked at her. Really looked. Everyone's dangerous when you push them far enough, I whispered. Even me. She didn't argue. Instead, she tapped the screen in front of her. A hologram flickered to life. Maps, symbols, coordinates, redacted names. Then maybe you're the right person to see this. The image centered on a compound buried beneath the old Antarctic ice. Not just cold, hidden. Off-grid. Project Cindervault. You're not the only one the council experimented on, she said quietly. My breath caught. The war was a smokescreen, she continued. It gave them cover to do things. To people. Biogenetic fusion. Neural hacking. Hybrid soldiers. Riven wasn't the first. And he wasn't the last. Kale's voice echoed in my mind again. You think I chose this? Aries, they rewrote me. What do you want from me? I asked. Jaw tight. Find out what's still buried down there. What the council left behind when the bombs fell. I stared at the glowing map. I'll go alone, I said. Danya blinked. That's suicide. So was loving Kale Riven, I said. Standing. And I did that anyway. Later that night, I stood by the window of my temporary housing, staring up at the stars. The galaxy was still at war. But here on Earth, in the heart of what was supposed to be peace, I was starting to see that maybe the ugliest battles were the ones no one talked about. The kind fought in labs, in shadows, in silence. And I was going to bring the silence down. One secret at a time. Cindervault. Location, Antarctica, subsurface ruins, Project Cindervault site. Timestamp, 0600 hours, 6 days later. The ice screamed. That was the first thing I noticed as I descended into the shaft, creaking, groaning, like the earth itself wanted to seal the place off again. I moved slow, boots crunching against frost-laced steel, my breath thick behind the visor. Cindervault base. I said into the calm. I've breached surface entry. No resistance so far, but it's cold. Too cold. Static. Then a voice. Copy that, Commander Vale, said Danya. Watch for structural collapse. That place has been dead for years. Let's hope it stays that way. I muttered. The hallway was lined with glass tubes, most broken. All empty. Test chambers 1A, 7B. Subject containment. The plaque was rusted, but I could still read the words. I paused at one of the intact tubes. Frost obscured most of the figure inside, but not the eyes. Still open. Still glowing faint blue. I took a step back. Breath catching. Not dead. Not alive either. Subject 14, I whispered. Biofusion series. A scream rose in the back of my throat, but I swallowed it, because I recognized that glow. Kale had the same eyes when they took control of him, when the programming hit full override. That was the moment I realized the council hadn't enhanced Kale. They'd cloned him. Down in the vault's core, I found the main server. Blackened. Melted. Like someone had tried to burn the truth with it. But one drive remained intact. As I linked my tablet to the data core, the feed blinked and whirred. And then, like a ghost rising from the grave, Kale's voice echoed through the speakers. Log file 07, red sunrise. If you're hearing this, I failed. Or I escaped. Doesn't matter. They'll call me a traitor, but you have to understand. I was trying to end it. I saw what they were building down here. Ares. It wasn't soldiers, it was puppets. Clones of me, of others. Some with your bloodline too. I stared at the console, numb. They said your father was a diplomat. That he died on Mars. But that's not true. He was one of the lead architects of the neural override program. They needed you. Not just for your mind, but your genes. I sank to the floor. They lied to me, I whispered. They built me for this. The comm crackled. Aries, do you copy? What did you find? I couldn't answer. Not yet. Because now I understood something I never wanted to. Kale hadn't betrayed the mission. He'd betrayed the council. And he died trying to protect me,